Hi, my name's Anthony Hamilton. I am the CEO of Georgina Energy PLC, a helium, hydrogen and natural gas company listed on the London Stock Exchange.
Anthony, good to see you. Time for an update. Last time we spoke, you said you were going into field and doing some survey work and starting the process of advancing the project. How have things gone?
Well, Mother Nature has certainly taught me a lesson. I took the decision to work on a December timeline for drilling. I wasn't to know that there was a once in 80-year weather event, which single-handedly skyboshed our plans. 274 millimetres of rain in 24 hours. Followed very closely by the fact that when we announced the resource upgrade, we increased the surface area of the resource profile by 50 square kilometres. And DEMAs, in their infinite wisdom, said, gents, you need to incorporate that 50 square kilometres into your environmental impact study, which we'd lodged. We'll call it EIS1. Was a 144-page document, and it was lodged over the 300 square kilometres. But according to DEMAs, we had to do another study, which we'll now call EIS2, and that incorporates the 50 square kilometres of additional resource profile. To put that into perspective, that's roughly over 12,000 acres of area.
Okay, so EIS1 on the 300, you've got a new 50, so that needs to be incorporated. Okay, like you say, bizarre, but what's this going to do for you in terms of delays to the kind of time frame? What's it going to do in terms of additional costs? And what else do we need to know about it?
Well, essentially, first things first, the original survey now needs to be incorporated and added to the 50 square kilometres that we're doing. We'd already budgeted for a lot of that, so it's not really going to be a significant increase in cost to complete that, but it's time sensitive. And the problem is that the weather right up and from December through to when we went to site on the 11th of March was just horrendous. We had, as I said, 274 mils of rain in 24 hours. We had a tropical cyclone come across the coast, which then turned into a low pressure system, which continued to dump huge amounts of water on the whole area. Roads were impassable. The airstrip was completely flooded and unserviceable. We did actually contemplate trying to fly our people in. Reality was that we actually managed to get a break in the weather, and we put our team on site on the 11th of March.
Okay, and I think you promised me before we started some photos, so hopefully the editor is scattering those throughout this conversation to give us a sense of what that looks like. But like, it's 3 months. Are we in like the wet season over there? Is that the issue?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that wet season runs right through until the end of April, early May, and that's a traditional period. And again, as CEO, I made the decision to try and push for the December window, so it's my responsibility. Reality was that a once in 80-year weather event absolutely came along and took our feet out from under us, and there wasn't anything we could do about it, and that meant that we lost December. The other part of it was that the increased resource profile meant there was an additional 50 square kilometres, and DEMAs, as part of the approval for drilling, requires that exploration area to be incorporated in it.
Okay.
Again,
yeah, I get that loud and clear. But what are we going to do about it? Like, have you had any kind of preliminary discussions with DEMAs to understand the likelihood of a kind of swift approval process, or do you expect it to just have to go through the regular?
It goes through the process. We know that by completing the EIS2, the cultural survey, the heritage survey, and the sacred site survey, once all of these documents are lodged, then, according to their own agenda, it's a 10 to 15 day cycle to receive approval from.
Okay. So you had some guys on site recently, well, just a few days ago, actually. So, well, how did they get down there, and, what are they doing down there?
So we had essentially 6 traditional owners, 2 contractors, our engineering team, operational staff from Georgina and Westmarket Oil and Gas, environmental impact surveyors, an anthropologist, and they were all brought in from various locations, some from Kalgoorlie, some from Wiluna, some from Alice Springs, and they managed to drive in along serviceable roads that we were able to think, and they all then got on site on the 11th. In fact, the last 2 persons only left site and arrived back in Alice Springs today. And they had to, because there was a major weather event came through. What should have been an 1,800 kilometre journey turned out to be 5,100 kilometres to get home.
Right. Okay. That sounds expensive. Not just in terms of time, but what can we expect to see more of that going forward, or are we just talking about just a seasonal adjustment?
That's it. So now the exercise is that all of those various parties will now prepare their reports. Those reports will then be incorporated in the EIS. The EIS will then be put into a draft form. It'll be given to the appropriate parties. They'll review it to make sure that it complies. Once we know that it's compliant, then myself and the operations director will sign off on it, and it'll then be lodged with DEMA.
Okay. We need to kind of get back to the money here, because it's a seasonal force majeure, whatever, disruption to your plans. In fact, before we leave that completely, with regards to the airstrip, you said it was unusable. When's it going to be usable again?
As soon as the rainy season finishes, it's essentially, we've already got a contractor who's been there, had a look at it, and we'll be able to grade it and repair it. Same with the access roads, they'll be able to grade them and repair them. So we already have that underhand. And we also, from a cost perspective, when we did the original estimates, we had a contingency of 20% in there. So that's not really going to cause us any dramas.
Okay, in terms of cost. Okay, then moving on to the money shot, which is really the kind of drilling and re-entry strategy. So where do we go from where you are now to actually being able to kind of get on with that part of the equation?
Well, essentially, we're in the hands. Once we lodge the EIS2, we'll lodge all the other documentation with it. DEMAs then will review it and determine whether or not it meets their requirements. If it does, they will then grant us approval to drill. And then it's a case of waiting till the wet season has finished at the end of April. We then make sure we've repaired the access roads, the drill pad, the airstrip. To put it into perspective, I don't want a $40 million drill rig stuck on site costing me $10,000 a day because it's bogged or can't get there. So we'll do it when it's appropriate, when it's safe, and when all of the elements of the road, the access and everything is in perfect condition.
Right. Okay. So your problem's not really with the sort of integrity of the well, or in terms of the stability, etc. This is all about surface operation conditions, getting equipment there, getting people there. So there's no more work to be done around the kind of the area around the kind of re-entry well, etc.
It's other than the fact that the re-entry, as we've always said, is an engineering exercise. So it's conditional on the integrity of the casing, the pressure, the plugs, the wellhead. We will excavate around.
But that hasn't changed.
As far as we know. As far as we know, it hasn't.
Right.
No.
Okay. I guess for me, that's all I really need to understand, because I understand the technical challenges from before and the opportunity ahead. In fact, it might be worth actually you sort of outlining some of that for people maybe coming into this afresh, because this is a setback. It set you back a quarter. I don't know what that's done to the balance sheet. We understand what it's done to the time frame, etc. But can you just remind people about what you think that you're chasing?
So we announced the scoping study on the 25th of February, which was done by a highly respected group, Duncan Seddon and Associates. They have tier one clients. They said the revenue potential for Hussar was between 7.3 million US to 208 million US per annum, depending on production rates. That's a pretty wide scope, and it's production dependent and flow rates, but it pretty much confirms what we knew in terms of the economic parameters and the implications of the resource we have. So yes, the weather's been a pain in the backside, but the resource hasn't gone anywhere. The resource hasn't gone anywhere. Everything's still where it is. A bit of water on the ground has thwarted us, but nothing changes. So our approach doesn't change. The scoping study has confirmed that what we believed to be an economically viable approach is there. So now we just have to complete all the requirements under the EIS and give it to DEMA. And again, people need to understand the area that we are redoing or incorporating, that's over 12,500 acres in area. That's not a wandering around Hyde Park. And these are very, very highly specific environmental elements that we need to comply with. And that's why we've got all the specialists that we have up there doing the work.
Okay, you said a few things today just make me kind of wonder, because it's big. Someone's just done a 5,100 kilometre or mile round trip. It sounds quite remote. I mean, surely, I'm now thinking about, well, what are the economics of getting this, whatever you find in the ground, into the network? Is it going to be expensive?
No, because ultimately our whole concept is to sell at the wellhead. So the off-taker, who we were in London seeing recently, and we've had other off-takers approach us, when we bring the gas to the wellhead and the reservoir engineers tell us what the flow rates are, they tell us what the composition of helium and hydrogen is, then it's over to the off-taker. And I don't mind saying it, I've said it before, it'll be a good old-fashioned Dutch auction, simple as that. Because from our perspective, Georgina's not trying, it would be completely stupid of Georgina to try and go out and raise $250 million to put a plant there, or to raise $1 billion. It's just not going to happen. But having said that, we've done a lot of the work for the off-taker. We've done the scoping study. We've done the salt cavern study. So we know what they're faced with. And very simple, Air Liquide, Linde, a whole range of companies produce what is called a mobile helium separator. Something that did come out of the scoping study, which is really important, is that we originally assumed we would use the natural gas, part of the natural gas, to run the plant with the off-taker. What Duncan Seddon and Associates suggested was use the hydrogen, because the natural gas has a far greater value along with the helium than the hydrogen does at this present point in time. Something we didn't even consider. So in essence, what's happened is the profit profile of what we're doing is enhanced by the fact that we'd use the hydrogen to run, the off-taker. We would deliver them helium, hydrogen and natural gas, and they'd use the hydrogen to run the plant.
Okay. Well, give me next step, because I think I think regular updates would be appreciated for sure. The next deliverables from you will be what, in what time frame?
We've set ourselves a timeline to have the report lodged no later than May. that will coincide with the end of the wet season. We're totally then in the hands of DEMAs. Once it's lodged, it's then just a case of waiting for approval for drilling. Once we have that, the engineers are already in place, the costings for the casings, all of the equipment, the drill rig, everything is sitting there. So we just need DEMAs to tell us that it's good to go.
Okay, that's neat. Appreciate your time today. Thanks for the update.
Thank you very much, Matt.